Welcome to Godzilla-THON. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. And despite it being in the DVD case, I actually have the Blu-ray. Why is the Blu-ray in the DVD case? Because for some reason, when they re-released the Heisei series on Blu-ray, even though for the most point they're bunched together, Godzilla vs. Destroya and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla are in the same disc, despite the fact that Godzilla 2000 happened before Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. I like to display them in chronological order, so that meant repurposing DVD cases in order to do that. Story over. Now, a lot of people consider this Mechagodzilla 2, with the original Mechagodzilla being Mechagodzilla 1. That's correct, but it's not totally correct. The initial story, the now established Godzilla force, takes the head of Mecha King Ghidorah out of the water, out of the ocean, and they build a robot to defeat Godzilla. The first Robot 1 or Garuda 1 was a plain Super X type weapon, but they decided they needed to build a more powerful robot. Robot 2 was Mechagodzilla 2. The Garuda 1 and Mechagodzilla 2. Robot 1 and 2. The story follows a few characters. Miki Sagusa is back again. There's some archaeologists who find baby Godzilla's egg, and some of the pilots of the Mechagodzilla 2, including one that worked on the Garuda and is a Pteranodon enthusiast. It begins with him getting transferred to the division to be a pilot on Mechagodzilla. The commander over the Mechagodzilla immediately berates him because he has Pteranodons listed as a hobby, and they proceed to beat him into shape. One of the things I like is how tactical this movie is. In the training, they talk about the safety range for Godzilla's heat beam and how many seconds it is from the glowing of the spines to the discharge of the heat beam. And I like that they went real strategic with this. While he's being trained, a scientific expedition goes to this island that the Russians were getting petroleum off of. There's an egg on the island. So they take the egg and they're preparing to leave the island with it. They're staying the night, but Rodan shows up. Off the bat, a very bad design for Rodan. As much as I love the monster designs in the Heisei series, they burnt the cookie bad with Rodan. In this first Rodan we see is the good version. It gets much worse with Fire Rodan. Anyway, he shows up and he's after the egg. Then Godzilla shows up. We see Godzilla first appear at just under 15 minutes into the movie. The scientists escape with the egg. The Pteranodon guy hears about the egg on the news and takes some and goes to visit the the research facility, and he steals one of the plant samples because there's this plant growing on the egg from Azusa. She kicks him out, and there's a scene later. He calls back, and she's like, "You stole it. You better bring it back." Well, he's at the mess, and he shows it to Miki Azusa, and she senses something. Miki Suzuka, and she senses how old it is, and they actually take the plant to the ESP Research Institute, and somehow they do some science fiction-y stuff and manage to isolate a frequency, and when they play it at the lab, the egg hatches. The girl's in there, and it had already imprinted on her because they determined there's points the egg glows red, and they figured it does that when it's scared. and it only did that when Azusa was gone. So it had already imprinted on her, and it thinks she's its mother. Anyway, while this is going on, Godzilla shows up. Guy's not there to do his job, so they have to get a backup pilot on the Mechagodzilla. And they fight, and Mechagodzilla manages to down Godzilla, and he has these shock anchors. And they actually manage to do some serious damage before Godzilla somehow reverses the flow and fries Mechagodzilla. And then we get a great scene with the military attacking Godzilla, and the hits are dead on, and there's a lot of great scenes of Godzilla walking in and kicking the tanks and them falling apart. He goes to Kyoto where the baby Godzilla is, and the baby Godzilla's eyes glow red, and it makes Godzilla retreat. Well, the one character gets fired from the Mechagodzilla crew and gets put over the parking lot as a punishment. He holds one of the main researchers hostage, basically, on this lift-like thing, and he's like, we can boost Mechagodzilla with the Garuda, so he figures out how to attach the Garuda to Mechagodzilla, making it Super Mechagodzilla. And anyway, we get to the point where they decide they want to lure Godzilla, so they transport Azusa and baby Godzilla in a shipping container. Well, Rodan revives himself, but somehow gets more power and becomes Fire Rodan. Cool concept. I love the fact that they gave him more attacks than just physical, but Fire Rodan looks too feral. He looks almost more like a parody of what Rodan should look like. Not only do I think the Showa Rodan is specifically the Showa Rodan in the original movie Rodan is the best design, but the Showa Rodan as a whole is stronger because in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, he put up a better fight for Godzilla. So they launched the Mechagodzilla in the Garuda, only the one guy, he takes the Garuda out instead of the designated pilot, and he even tells the commander, I had to do it, this was my idea. Well, they go, Fire Rodan manages to crash to make the Garuda crash, and he gives Mechagodzilla a fairly decent fight, but one of Mechagodzilla's powers, his armor is actually coated in the synthetic diamond, and he has something that opens up in his stomach, and there's a lens that can return the heat beam, so they improved on the concept of what Super X2 was, and that is really awesome. Well, they severely damage Rodan. I mean, they blast a hole in him, and he's got blood coming out of his mouth. Godzilla shows up, and by the way, Rodan even damages Mechagodzilla. He takes out one of the eye lasers, and this Mechagodzilla is well armed. He's got eye lasers. Had to pause it for a minute, but Mechagodzilla 2 is really armed. The eye lasers, mouth laser, he's got paralyzer missiles, and he's got these shock anchors. Well, Godzilla and Mechagodzilla 2 fight, and Godzilla manages to win again. The guy manages to repair Garuda, goes after Godzilla, and you see, Garuda is super maneuverable, and Godzilla has a hard time hitting it. Mechagodzilla flies off and shoulder tackles Godzilla. They form the Super Mechagodzilla. And Super Mechagodzilla is so powerful. It blasts Godzilla with everything, gets him to the ground, and they discover that Godzilla has a secondary brain from studying the baby Godzilla. Miki Sagusa is aboard the Mechagodzilla 2 because she can, with the machinery, use her psychic power to target the second brain. She doesn't want to do it, but she has to. They manage to hit the second brain and cripple Godzilla and fry him, and Godzilla looks dead, and I believe he is dead at this point. because originally he was supposed to die in this movie, but Rodan is still alive. He flies to Godzilla, and he basically gives all his power to Godzilla and creates this dust, and it's basically melting Mechagodzilla's armor. And when Godzilla gets up, we see this red energy pulsate through his body. It kind of comes in the places where the marks are when he becomes Burning Godzilla. So, did him getting Rodan's power begin the slow process of turning him into Burning Godzilla? I know Godzilla vs. Destroya gave an explanation, but I can't help but wonder if what happened here didn't play a part of it. Godzilla then begins to hit Mechagodzilla with the red spiral beam. Well, let me back it up for a minute. Before this, the Garuda pilot comes out in this flying Pteranodon thing he made, and he goes to help Isuza. Sorry, I forgot to mention that, but Godzilla's blasting Mechagodzilla with the red spiral beam. And the computer's giving these feedback about the damage, and the pilot's stubborn. He's like, "We're not beat yet." I'm like, the controls are exploding around you. You are beat. So they launch the escape pod, and there's a cool shot where you see the escape pod flying over Godzilla. Godzilla levels and destroys Mechagodzilla. And there in the escape pod, the computer's reading, "Damage level 10. This ship has been destroyed. There are no survivors." And the head pilot just "You're wrong there. There's plenty of us." So Isuza and the others go to leave on a helicopter, and baby Godzilla's wanting to come with her. And it's a sad scene because they have to part ways, and she gets on the radio and talks to Mickey and like, "Can you make Godzilla understand he has to take baby Godzilla?" So she uses her psychic powers. In Godzilla and baby Godzilla leave, and in the credits we see them traveling through the ocean. This film is awesome. It's a must-see, must-own. Akira Ikefube, again, at the top of his game. This is the second to last Godzilla soundtrack he ever did, and it is incredible. I love Mechagodzilla's theme. It sounds similar-ish to Godzilla, but it has its own instruments in its own flavor. It's more metallic. It's just that Mechagodzilla should have a theme. It's what Mechagodzilla's theme should be. He was passed up in the next movie for another composer, which I think is a bit of a mixed bag. Although I like all the music in the movie, I don't think all of it was totally used right or even appropriate for a Godzilla movie. But that's a discussion for another time. Next time, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, and then the end of the Heisei series with Godzilla vs. Destroya, one of the greatest Godzilla films of all time. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification button so you can be notified when new videos launch, and even hit dislike. Well, till next time, I'll see you later. Over and out.